Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be reading a classic fairy tale and then some modern retellings of it and kind of comparing the source material to the twists that the new authors have put on it. So when I was a teenager, I used to love fairy tale retellings. I used to read them all the time, but I had never really read the source material. Like I knew the story, but I hadn't, actually read the original text. So it's going to be kind of interesting to like directly compare them and see, what little tidbits that authors have carried over, what they've changed, and kind of get a sense of how authentic the story actually is. So I read Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, and I ended up giving it like 3.5, 3.75 stars. I did really enjoy it. I think everyone kind of knows or like has this thing in their mind where you hear these fairy tales or like these Disney movies, and you kind of know that the text, like the original fairy tale, is much darker. So I kind of went into it knowing that that was going to be the case. It was definitely a little bit darker, and it was very interesting. It wasn't as dark as I was expecting it to be, but it was interesting kind of seeing like how Peter really is, like in the what we know, the fluffed up version. He's like fun, wonderless, like he's this very curious kind of child. But in the book, you actually get to see kind of his like darker side of being a child. Like he doesn't like anyone to be stronger than him or smarter than him, and he can be like murderous if they are. But it was really interesting to read through the original story, and yeah, I really enjoyed kind of getting to delve into that. I did find the like Captain Hook storyline a little bit disappointing. I suppose just kind of the way it went and like unwound was a little bit silly to me. But and it was very like anticlimactic because it was just like, okay, we're battling, and then he's gone. But it was still interesting, and I'm very glad I read this book. It was also interesting to kind of compare the idea of Peter Pan I had in my mind with the actual text, and I did enjoy it overall. I would recommend it. So the first retelling I read was Never by Jessa Hastings, which I give 4 stars. This was kind of the reason I started doing this video, because I love Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, one of my favorite series, and she came out with this book. This is her first book since that series, and she had said that you should kind of read Peter Pan. So I'm very glad I did, because it definitely was like it was cool to see that her Peter had a lot of the characteristics and traits of like the canonical Peter. So in Never, we follow Daphne, who is, I believe, Wendy's great granddaughter. And like everyone in her family has been so excited for her to be whisked away by Peter, and she's like, yeah, come on. She's very studious. But then he ends up like coming to her door. She comes late as well. Like they kind of expected him to come and collect her at 13, and I think he's like 16, 17. So he's aged up a little bit. But yeah, it was kind of interesting because she's like fighting it the whole time, and then she gets there and she meets Captain Hook's son, and there's like a little love triangle, which was a lot of fun. I was kind of nervous to pick this up because I'd heard a lot of negative things about it, but it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Jessa worked her magic. The scenery was beautiful. It was well written. We have our typical like messy characters. But yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing Peter Pan like through her lens, and she also added kind of a new like villain, a really interesting kind of magic system, and a lot more detailed kind of how Neverland works. And a little bit more of like the society and stuff, which I loved. It was really, really interesting, and I felt like I was transported there, which was fun. I really liked what she did with Peter's character because it was pretty similar, I would say, to the original book, where Peter was very possessive over Daphne, but he was also very forgetful. Like he would just get distracted by stuff, and he would leave her places, and he would expect like 100% of her attention and loyalty the whole time, but then would forget about her and would be off with other girls and that kind of stuff, and he forgets a lot of things. So that was really interesting. Obviously very frustrating. And then Jem, who is Captain Hook's son, was just so fun. It was kind of like boy versus man, because she's kind of right at that, I think she's like 18. So it's right at that point where you're kind of holding on to your youth but wanting to be a bit older, which was a really fun theme that the book explored. But yeah, seeing her kind of, deciding between the two was very interesting. I think the ending got a little bit crazy, which is it's Jess's way. She just likes to bring people together, tear them apart, bring them together, tear them apart. I thought this was going to be a standalone, and then I saw it's going to be 4 books, so I'm not sure how that's going to happen. Which like in Magnolia Parks, it's a lot of fun, but I don't know. I think I just got like a little bit frustrated, but I think it's mainly because I don't like Peter. Like I don't know why we're choosing between him and Jem. Like Jem is the clear great choice. He's lovely. And Daphne was a bit thick sometimes, where Jem would be like, oh yeah, I don't really like you, to protect her or whatever, and or for whatever reasons, you'll find out if you read it. And she would be like, "Oh, okay," and it's like, "Girl, like use your eyes, don't just listen to what he said, like, infer here." And multiple people were like, he likes you, like look beyond his words, and she's like, "No, he told me straight up." So that was kind of frustrating, one of those you want to shake the book kind of thing. But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. I'm not sure when the next book's coming out, but I'm excited to continue. And yeah, I'm not sure how on earth this is going to be 4 books unless they're going to introduce more people, because yeah, I don't know. Like she obviously needs to end up with Jem. But yeah, the next book I read was Darling Girl by Liz Mikowski, and I gave this 2.5 stars. This, I would say, is the most like modern retelling of the ones that I read, because it's set in like normal world. It's kind of magical realism, and it's set in modern day. So we follow, I believe it's Wendy's granddaughter, and her daughter has been in a coma for years, and she suddenly goes missing. So she has to go and find her daughter, and she's dealing with like a lot of family secrets. She has a son as well. There's a lot of family secrets. There's a lot of like loss. Like she lost her some of her family. Like it's very intense. Honestly, it was a little bit darker than I was expecting. And then we also have, I believe it was Jane, who is like Wendy's daughter, so this woman's mother. And kind of, she's trying to deal with Peter. Peter's kind of a villainous character in this, and trying to like get Jane to confront the fact that Peter isn't who she thought he was. Which is really interesting. That was something I kind of saw in Never as well, is that these women are just obsessed. Like the darling women are obsessed with Peter forever, and they have this whole like kind of fake persona of him in their mind, and they can't accept that he's not as amazing as he thinks, or that he's forgetting who they are and all that. So I kind of think it's a very interesting way to explore, like, holding on to someone that isn't holding on to you, and learning to let go, and like that you have to keep living your life. That was something as well they explored a little bit more in Never. I know I'm like jumping all over the place, but they were talking a lot about fate, and that like Daphne, the main character, thought that Peter was her fate, so she didn't want to like mess with it, and that's why she'd been brought to Neverland. And it was kind of interesting, because I think, especially as like women, you kind of get told like soulmates and all that kind of stuff, and it's just it was interesting to kind of explore that through this lens of like, okay, like it's all up to you. You can actually just let go and just do what you want, kind of thing. That you don't have to, you know, hold on to what you think you should be doing, or this, what you think is supposed to happen, kind of thing. I did also really like how they explored like Peter's cruelty and like stuff I've been talking about his negative traits through this modern lens and in the modern world. That was really interesting. A little bit disturbing. There's definitely like, you should look at trigger warnings for this if that is something you need to do. But yeah, I honestly rated it kind of low, just because it felt a little bit silly at times, and I think because it was in the real world, I was expecting it not to be believable necessarily. Like, obviously, it's magical realism, but just some of the plot points were a little bit silly, and there was kind of like this mystery element that they were trying to weave in that I just don't think worked for me. So I don't think it's a bad book. I think a lot of people would really enjoy it. I just think I got a bit strict with it. But yeah, I do think it's a well done book, and I think it's a really interesting story. The last book I read was Tiger Lily by Jodie Lee Anderson, and I gave this 2.5 stars. This is almost like an alternative prequel to the story of Peter Pan. We're following Tiger Lily, who is part of like a native tribe on Neverland, and she ends up like falling in love with Peter, getting kind of sucked into his orbit. And despite that, she's very much like a tomboy. She was never wanting to be like partnered up with anyone in her tribe. Any of that stuff. And so she, falls for Peter, and they kind of, she starts questioning things about her tribe and is kind of prepared to throw a lot of that away. And then Miss Wendy Darling arrives and shows Tiger Lily that, her tomboyness is kind of getting in the way of her with Peter, and that Wendy is everything soft and gentle and all that kind of stuff. So that was interesting. I really liked this book, to be honest. Maybe I shouldn't have given it 2.5 stars. I think I got a bit sick of it at the end. It's probably more like a 3. There was a lot of commentary on colonialism, which was really interesting. Like, they had this Englishman that washed ashore and starts like teaching Christianity to the tribe and like throwing out their traditions, which was interesting. And they were very like, so a lot of them were accepting, but there was one that was kind of forced into it, and it was very interesting to see that kind of unfold. We also explored grief, which was interesting, and kind of a similar thread of like a love that never leaves you, and just because you love someone at some point doesn't mean that their love like leaves, I suppose, which is kind of opposite to the message of the last book, actually. But you will always hold love for them, and you'll always like have that time with them, but that doesn't mean that you can't like get on with your life, I suppose. It doesn't mean that you should live your life like, you know, wishing that you were still with that person, but you could have closed the chapter but still kind of love that person. Yeah, I think this kind of explored a little bit more of Peter's vulnerable side. Like he was a little bit of an annoying kid, but for the most part, it was a lot less like dark sided and treacherous as he is in some of the other books. I did like this. This is the one that's been on my TBR for like 10 years, and I did like this more than I expected. It was really fun. I think the reason I rated it low is just because in the middle it just felt like nothing was going on. And I think it's because it's kind of more of a romance, and I just can't really deal with those when that's like the primary focus. Like a lot of it was just Tiger Lily like sneaking out from her tribe to go and like play with Peter and the Lost Boys, and yeah, that was just a bit much for me. I was like, okay, I'm kind of done. But it was interesting. I really enjoyed kind of seeing the different characters. It's also told from Tinkerbell's perspective. So that was just so fun, like hearing her little fairy isms and her perspective and giving her kind of a voice when we never get to hear from her was really fun. So I think honestly, if you like Peter Pan, you would definitely enjoy this because it's kind of like an alternative prequel, and the ending was very satisfying. It kind of wrapped it all up. Maybe I did rate this too low, actually. Hang on. I think it just felt a little bit tedious to get through the middle, but it was like, looking back, it was very nice. I liked the way that they explored the different themes. I suppose I should have been expecting kind of the colonialism insights, but I really wasn't, and I really enjoyed kind of that lens as well. It was very interesting. It kind of gave the book a little bit of like, it grounded the book a little bit. But yeah, I would definitely actually recommend this. It took a lot of kind of the little bits that we get from the original story and explores them more. Like you're intrigued by Tinkerbell, you're intrigued by Tiger Lily, and I think it's just fun to see the main character not Peter and Wendy, and you're kind of getting to have a different perspective. I also enjoyed that the darling, like Wendy did come in the end, but I enjoyed that the darlings weren't really part of it, and we kind of just got to see like what Neverland was like before all that stuff. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, those are all the books I read for the Peter Pan comparison. I would say that Never is kind of the closest to like the magic of Peter Pan. It's definitely the one I enjoyed the most. Like I enjoyed it more than Peter Pan as well, but it's definitely it really throws you into Neverland, and you're kind of getting to experience that. But I am a little bit biased because I do just love Jessa Hastings. I think Tiger Lily is probably the most interesting retelling, that you're kind of getting the most addition to the original story. It's kind of a lot of enrichment. And then Darling Girl is very creative. It just, I think, fell a little bit flat in some places. But if you like kind of seeing what a fairy tale would look like in like, you know, urban fantasy kind of modern life, then I think you'd probably really enjoy it. I also did get one book off my physical TBR, which has been a goal of mine this year. So Never was on my physical TBR, which I did buy this year. But it's fine. And I am going to be keeping that actually. So I've read it, but it isn't getting unhauled. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave me a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these, or if you have any fairy tale retelling recommendations that you want to see me kind of compare. And yeah, hope to see you guys in another video soon. Bye!